a touching point about davening. The Shulchan Aruch says in Tzadi Aleph Dalid, or Tzadi Aleph Hey, the Shulchan Aruch says, Lo yamud be'afundato, v'lo berosh biguleh, v'lo beraglayim migulim. So he says, when you come to daven, you have to dress properly. And the Shulchan Aruch clarifies for us several examples of improper dress. The first is, one should not stand ba'afundato. An afunda is some kind of a vest. The Mishnah Berurah explains that it's a kind of a jacket that you might wear that's filled with money and, maybe the kind of jacket that telephone repairmen use, which has, all sorts of pockets and things in it. He says that the Shulchan Aruch says is not acceptable. Second thing is lo berosh miguleh. Says rosh miguleh. It's hard to imagine that the Shulchan means that you should go around without anything on your head. I mean, everybody wore something. Every man wore something on his head. So the Mishnah Berurah says, rosh miguleh, he says, in our time, you have to put a hat on your head as you wear when you go in the street, and not the little hat that you wear under the bigger hat. Because people don't stand before other important dignitaries with a yarmulke on, but they always wear a hat. So I think that in our times, it's not unreasonable to say that at least in certain societies, people never wear a hat. They don't wear a hat when they go to shul, and they don't wear a hat when they go to see important people. I mean, they don't wear a hat. So maybe they wear a yarmulke, maybe they don't wear a yarmulke, but they don't wear hats. Hats are... there are other groups, other societies that we live in, where wearing a hat is de rigueur. Everybody wears a hat, everybody wears a hat for davening, etc. So here the Mishnah Berurah, living in his world, said that wearing a hat is very important because that's the way you dress when you go to visit the dignitaries. Today, the Chavetz Chaim in America might say the same thing. He might have changed his mind. But that's what the Shulchan Aruch says, and that's what the Mishnah Berurah says. The third thing is, lo biraglayim migulim. Lo biraglayim migulim. You shouldn't walk around without wearing socks. You should wear socks. Here, I think there was a time, for example, in Eretz Yisrael, it was very hot, and the Mishnah Berurah says, Akol talui lefi minhag hamekomot. Minhag hamekomot, whether you do wear it or you don't wear it. But he says, Ba'atzot hachamim ma'od, in very hot countries, she'omdim sham gam kein b'fnei gdolim yachev. He's thinking of, I guess, Arabs and dignitaries and the way they dress, and they dress differently than Westerners dress. So that when the Jews came back to Eretz Yisrael in modernity, there was an interest that they had to dress like the native population, because they seemed to know how to deal with the oppressive heat. And so sometimes people went barefoot, or they wore sandals, right? Even though the Shulchan Aruch takes a stand against that. Today, things have changed. Everything is air conditioned. In fact, today, sometimes in the heat of the summer, you have to wear a sweater in order to deal with the oppression of the air conditioning. And once again, it's unreasonable to imagine that people would go to see a dignitary, an important personality, without wearing socks and shoes, or socks and sandals on them. I mean, there are sandals that are like shoes. And so I think in this case that even if you would say that as far as the hats are concerned, maybe you don't have to wear a hat today, but I think as far as socks are concerned, I don't think that there's a real heter to daven without the socks. So that there was once a time when different people in different places dressed differently, and that would have determined the halacha. Today, most Westerners and a lot of people from the East, they all dress exactly the same way, and they all dress as though they live in air conditioning. And since they dress the same, and they dress as though they live in air conditioning, we can take our clue from the people who we see photographed at important events. And you see that in Israel, even though there was a time when no one wore a suit and a tie, today it's rather common to see people wearing a suit and a tie. On the other hand, even though there was a time that people wore hats, today it's a lot less common to see people wearing hats. On the other hand, if you want to belong to a certain world, a hat-wearing world, a yeshiva kind of hat-wearing world, then of course you will opt to join them by wearing a hat, even though it's not clear that the halacha makes such a demand.